Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for being here. I hope you guys are doing well. I'd like to say Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed your time with your family and friends. So today I would like to talk about this topic, and I've heard this question a couple of times, and I'm sure some people are curious about this. Why do Filipinas marry foreigners? The trend of Filipinas marrying foreigners is not a new phenomenon. This has been happening for decades. Back in the day, a lot of Filipinas marry foreigners because there was a military base in the Philippines. The Subic Bay Naval Base, which was established by the U.S. Navy in 1898, and during its operation, of course, there were a lot of servicemen in the country, and a lot of them ended up marrying Filipinas. That base shut down in 1992. As a young girl, I also remember that back in the 1980s, 1990s, there was this big movement of spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ. So we had a lot of foreign missionaries, a lot of them are American missionaries, and specifically in the provinces of the Philippines, a lot of them, were on mission trips, and during that time, a lot of them ended up marrying Filipinas. Nowadays, this interracial marriage continued to rise with globalization and, of course, the internet. The internet has made it easier for people to connect all over the world. And, you have online dating sites, you've got different types of social media platforms, and those places have become a common meeting ground for Filipinas and foreigners. So there's a lot of reasons why Filipinas marry foreigners. I'm gonna mention a couple of them and we're gonna discuss them. So the first one is, for a lot of Filipinas, it's not really easy to find love, and sometimes you find that love in unexpected places. And with, social media and the internet, the technology nowadays, it made it much more convenient for a lot of people to meet other people. Another reason is that this reason I've mentioned in one of my videos. Some Filipinas marry foreigners because they find that they are attracted to the foreign man. That attraction is based on physical attributes. I mentioned that some Filipinas prefer men who are taller. And yes, there are tall men in the Philippines, tall Filipino men, but the average height for a Filipino man is like 5'3". So even if you'd be considered somewhat average here in the US, for example, 5'6", 5'7", 5'8", in the Philippines, you'd be considered pretty tall. So a lot of Filipinas, that is kind of a big deal for Filipinas. I think majority of women, if they have a choice, they want a man who's, much taller than them. Of course, when it comes to, the attraction, there's also the factor of the personality trait. In general, most Filipinas find Western men specifically to be much more easygoing, but the big difference is that foreign men are more direct to the point, not just being straightforward when it comes to conversations. Foreign men are also more, they have like a direct plan of what they want to do next. There's that plan, and a lot of times they're also very good at implementing those plans. With some Filipino men tend to be very, what's this word? We call it paligoy-ligoy. Paligoy-ligoy. I can't say it anymore. It's like they tend to be not so clear with their intentions. Another word for it, like someone who's kind of always beating around the bush. That's the big, I guess, difference when it comes to personality. The foreign man is usually more straightforward. There's a clear path, plan of what they want to do next, especially when it comes to relationship. They're basically like direct to the point. This is what I want to do. This is what we're going to do next. With the Filipino guys, sometimes, not all, of course, some Filipino guys tend to be kind of, some Filipinas feel like they're kind of left in, like, what do you call this, in the air. They don't really know what's going to happen next, that kind of thing. And of course, there's also the perceived qualities of the foreign man. Some Filipinas marry foreigners because they find the allure to the foreign culture, specifically the Western culture. I've noticed that a lot of times, not all the times, I've noticed that these Filipinas, they're looking for the Western family dynamics. Most Filipinas I know personally still like the traditional family structure where you have the husband as the main provider of the family, you have the wife as the helpmeet and support system for the head of the family, and then you have the children. Unfortunately, in the Philippines, some women find it hard to kind of juggle, is that a word, these two different roles, because they find themselves in the role of, they're expected to be the traditional wife with the traditional roles At the same time, because of there's many reasons, but mainly because of the socioeconomic, situation in the country, a lot of women find themselves in a position where they also have taken the role of being the provider, the breadwinner of the family. For some women, that can be very challenging because, yes, the family, the extended family, and the society in general expects you to be the wife, the traditional wife. At the same time, because of the socioeconomic situation of the country, that's not the only reason, but a lot of times that is the reason. A lot of women have also taken the role of being the provider. And a lot of women, they're just really looking for a partner who's an active participant, a partner who's also doing their part. And some women find that they cannot find that in the Philippines, unfortunately. Okay, let's talk about the socioeconomic factors because that seems to be the first thing people think about when they see a Filipina marrying a foreigner. Some people will say, well, the Filipina is marrying the foreigner because she wants to have a better life. Is that true? Well, for some, yes, that is the case. I would say for most. And I've mentioned in one of my videos that I don't necessarily see anything wrong with that because, you know, it doesn't matter where the woman is from, Philippines, the West, it doesn't really matter. If a woman has a choice, she will always choose the man who is a good provider. However, if that is the only reason and if that is the main reason why she's marrying you, then obviously that is not good. That is a red flag. But people tend to focus on the financial stability portion of the better life. For some Filipinas, again, this is based on what I've observed. For some Filipinas, the better life means they just want to have a normal, peaceful family life. And with the Filipino culture, it can be there's a lot of good things about a culture, but one of the things you will encounter, and I'm sure Filipinos will understand this, I hope. Um, one of the things that you will encounter is that it's sometimes, not all the times, sometimes it's very hard to have a peaceful life because there's always drama in the family. Because there's always people, so many people involved. You got the parents, the in laws, extended families, and sometimes that kind of tight relationship can make starting a family or running a family, I should say, kind of challenging because again, there's so many hands, in the pie, so many people involved. And some Filipinas like that family dynamic of the Western family dynamic where you have freedom to run your own household, you have freedom to make your own decisions. In the Philippines, because of again, you're gonna have to kind of get into the culture and understand how things are in the Philippines, especially when it comes to family dynamics. It can get very challenging. And for some Filipinas, the better life really means, I'm going to be able to have a peaceful family life. I hope that makes sense. I hope I explained that properly. So here's the truth that some people, specifically Filipinos, they might find this statement offensive. But again, this is just based on my observation and experiences of women that I personally know of. More and more Filipinas are opting to marry foreigners because it's getting harder and harder to find a good Filipino man. All right, ouch. I know that can be offensive, but it's just a fact. Um, Based on my observation, growing up in my own neighborhood, society, and experiences of women that I personally know of, with Filipino men, there's two extremes. Okay, you've got the good Filipino man. That man is a treasure. Any woman who finds that kind of man, they're very lucky, very fortunate, they're blessed. Okay, that Filipino man, that good Filipino man, is loyal to his woman. He's a good husband, a good father. He's very responsible, and in general, those kind of Filipino men are very tenacious. They have a lot of they persevere no matter how hard life is. They will do whatever it takes to protect and support his family. Unfortunately, that man, they don't stay single very long. They find a woman, they get married, they have children, they settle down, and they're focused on supporting and providing for their family. On the other hand, you have the other extreme. Some people find this part extreme, but I don't necessarily maybe a good extreme, but on this side you have the bad one, the toxic Filipino man. And fortunately, this man, they're always available, they're always ready to mingle, and there's a lot of them, especially nowadays. And that is one of the challenge. Actually, there was this very popular TikTok video a couple of years ago. It was trending, and in this video, there's this couple of groups of people asking women, both Filipinas and foreign women, asking like, who are the most toxic men you have dated, which nationality. I don't know why they had to do that video, but they did. Unfortunately, majority of these women said that on the top of their list, it's the Filipino men. Is that true? Are Filipino men toxic? So I'd like to go ahead and talk about the qualities of the Filipino men, good and bad, to kind of have a better understanding. If we're talking about the good qualities, there are plenty of good qualities. And both men, the good Filipino men and the toxic one, have these qualities. One of the one that's, I would say, most Filipinos can agree on. If you're a Filipino, you know this. Most Filipino men are very suave. We call it suave, very charismatic. In the region where I'm from, the Bicol region, we have a term for this. Maurag, uragon. Basically means someone who is capable. He is strong. He is so manly, so macho. I remember my grandmother who spoke Spanish. They also have a term for this called cariñoso. Cariño, which is a Spanish word that basically translates to affection. Filipino men are affectionate, very loving. So with that kind of quality, you combine that with the talent. A lot of Filipino men are good singers, good dancers, and that makes for like a good recipe for, like, what do you call this? Like they're good suitors. Filipino men are amazing suitors. They will do whatever it takes to get the woman's approval, or to get that oh, they said a yes. And when they do that, a lot of women fall for that because it's hard to resist. They're very nice. They show the best version of themselves, even above and beyond. There's so many ways they make you feel like, you're the most special person in the world. Things like giving you flowers, constantly feeding you good food and sweets. And back in the day, I don't know if they still do this in the Philippines, but they do this thing called harana, which is serenading the woman. Basically, at night, that woman will be outside the window in front of her house singing her love songs. I mean, that's so sweet. A lot of women fall for that kind of, what do you call those? Panliligaw, or I don't know if you guys have a term for that here, but in the Philippines we call it panliligaw, pursuing the woman. Some will even write love letters. I mean, I'm sure some Westerners do this, but Filipinos are very passionate when it comes to pursuing a girl. And that, yeah, the passion. They're very passionate. They're very, very patient when it comes to waiting for the girls. Yes. A lot of women, a lot of times they get swept over their feet, head over heels. Is that the right term? Swept over my feet? Okay. All right. Yes. So those are some of the good qualities. They're very charismatic, very suave. They always give you that vibe of you're the most important person in my life kind of thing. And Filipinas fall hard for that kind of man. Now, both men have those qualities, the good and the toxic Filipino man. But there's one quality that kind of separates the good man from the toxic one, and that is loyalty. The good Filipino man is very loyal to his wife. And, no matter how much temptation, because there's going to be a lot of temptations in the Philippines, no matter how much temptations, he will always stand by his woman, or, vice versa. She will always stand by him. Um, the toxic Filipino man, no. He's always ready to mingle. He's always available. That is the biggest difference. Okay, here are some reasons why I find some Filipino men to be toxic. And this is based on my observation and, of course, experiences of women I personally know of. One of the major, I guess, problem, I would say, major factor why some Filipinas find Filipino men toxic is the fact that there's a lot of infidelity in the Philippines and a lot of men cheat. That value of being very passionate, which is supposed to be a good value. On the other hand, that is also a big problem. A lot of men are very charismatic, again, very passionate, very suave, very nice, very kind. So much passion they can't contain. And that passion is for everybody. Their passion is for everybody. So you've got a lot of infidelity, a lot of cheating. Now, some men, you can't really blame them. Some women are just, drawn to them because of that charisma, right? So that is a big problem for a lot of Filipino women. They find that it is a big problem. The cheating is, yeah, it is a big problem in the Philippines. Okay, another reason. Um, This I'm gonna have to think how to explain this. All right, some men tend to leave the woman on the worst shape prior to meeting him or them. That is a big problem. So a lot of these women are young, innocent, pure. She's got no clue, and then she gets pursued by this very charismatic, very passionate man, and before you know it, she gets pregnant. She gets knocked out, and then, is that the word, knocked out? All right, yeah. She gets pregnant, and then she's abandoned. So the worst shape prior to meeting him. And a lot of women, that is why in the Philippines there's a lot of single mothers, because a lot of these women are very, they have no clue that they're just getting, um, almost getting tricked. It's a trick. This other reason I'm going to mention is somewhat related to the crab mentality that I mentioned in one of my videos. I'm going to try to link the video in my, description below. The coping mechanism when, and this is, for the toxic men, all right? The coping mechanism. Some men, when they get rejected, um, to be able to cope with that rejection, they do petty things, which is very much similar to the crab mentality. Petty things like, spreading rumors, just to, with the mindset of, if I can't have you, nobody can have you. So yeah, if I can't have you, then nobody will. That kind of mindset, very much related to that crab mentality. A lot of times, that's why I remember my dad saying this, like, you have to be very careful of situations, because some men, to be able to cope with rejection, for example, if they're pursuing a woman and then she says no, instead of just moving on, because he feels rejected, right? He feels disappointed. He'll go and start spreading rumors. And if you put yourself, if you're a woman, if you're a Filipina, and then you put yourself in a situation, you're not careful, you put yourself in a situation, maybe you went out on a date with him one time, and then you held hands. He'll exaggerate that kind of story to his friends, and that rumor goes. Everybody will gossip about that. Will gossip about you. Oh yeah, I've kissed her. I've already taken her. She's no longer pure, with the intention of completely destroying your reputation and your dignity. That kind of thing is very petty. Now, with the infidelity, and I think it's fair, it wouldn't be fair to just blame the men, because it takes two to tango, okay? That is just the reality. Yes, the men, a lot of these men commit initiate the cheating and the infidelity, but the women too also are drawn to those kind of men. This mentality of, oh, I'm gonna be the one to tame him. I'm gonna be the one he's gonna settle with. I'm gonna be the one that he's gonna take to the altar. It's almost like a challenge for some women. It's almost like, oh, I'm gonna be the one to change him. That kind of mentality. And so you got a lot of infidelity. And one of the biggest, I guess, I would have to mention this, because I've seen this so much in the Philippines. I noticed that there's so much infidelity because a lot of people are in the state of, what's the word, idleness, being idle, the state of inactivity, the state of inaction, not doing anything. Laziness is a problem, for some people. And we even have a term for this in the Philippines. We call this tambay, which basically means to stand by doing nothing. So people have so much time in their hand, and that happens. You know what they say, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And for a lot of people, that is the case. Now, the cheating problem is probably one of the major reasons why Filipina opt to marry foreigners. I'm not saying that it's always going to be greener on the other side, but it is a big problem in the Philippines, the cheating. So I'm going to read this report from the Manila Standard, because I don't want to just be talking here with my opinions and, my perspective. I want to be able to support it with data. Okay, according to this report from the Manila Standard, based on a report from the National Commission on the Role of Filipino Women in 2009, a long time ago, marital infidelity is one of the major causes of stress among Filipino couples, with about 36% of men and 2% of women engaging in extramarital affairs. See, that is big, and that is back in 2009, so I can only imagine how high that is nowadays. This is quite evident in the rise in the number of marriage annulment cases in the Philippines. In the last decade, there has been a 40% increase. That is a big increase. So if it's, what, 36, that is 36% in 2009, and then there's a 40% increase in the last decade. That is a lot of people, right? With at least 22 cases filed daily. So 22 cases of annulment filed daily. Data from the Office of the Solicitor General, as reported by the CBCP News, showed that the annulment cases had risen from 4,520 in 2001, again, that's like a decade ago, to 8,000 2 decades ago, 2008, 8,282. It doubled in 2010. Again, that's a decade ago. So I can only imagine that number now. That is very, very high. That's why they've been really pushing for divorce in the Philippines. So this is a big problem in the Philippines. And yeah, one of the reasons why a lot of women are, choosing to leave, choosing to marry a foreigner. I'm not saying it's always going to be greener on the other side. Obviously, you have to be very wise when it comes to choosing your partner for life. But for some women, there's really not a lot of options. And I think this is going to be a this will continue to rise because it's become like a cycle. So you've got families separated together, married couples living away from each other for long periods of time because at least one of the one person is working abroad, and that creates for that situation of easy temptation because you're separated for so long. And then the children see that children growing up with broken families, they see their dad or their mothers, cheating, and it's become like a cycle. So those children grow up in that type of situation, that type of environment. And some children will choose to have a different life, but a lot of children, you get so used to that kind of situation, you think that is acceptable. So it's a cycle of constant, it just goes all around and around, and it is kind of sad. It is a very sad reality in the Philippines. I hope the government will find ways to kind of alleviate the situation if they can. I hope that the economy gets better so people don't have to leave the country, especially married couples. I hope people don't have to be separated because I think that is one factor that's making this worse. Married couples separated for long periods of time. And I think the mindset has to change. That mindset of, if you're from Latin America, you know what I'm talking about. That cheating culture. Women are kind of just expected to tolerate this culture or to tolerate this behavior. They were saying back in the day when I was growing up, like, oh, as long as you stand by your man, the family will will be the family will not be broken for as long as the woman stay by her man. Basically, you just have to tolerate this kind of behavior because you don't want the family to be broken. Not a good mindset. So yeah, a lot of women almost like gotten desensitized to that kind of culture, and so they just accept this behavior. In that situation of the socioeconomic factor where a lot of people have to live separately, especially married couples, that is making it even more difficult for some people to to stay faithful because yeah, there's a lot of temptation when you're separated for that long period of times. I hope and pray that it can get better. I hope and pray that situations would change. If that continues, more and more women will choose to leave and will choose to find better options for themselves. All right, that is my video for today. I hope I've given some information, valuable information to you. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.